Nick Chubb is back. Amari Cooper is a Buffalo Bill, and the Cleveland Browns are going to Brook Park. We have a lot to talk about in this Bengals Browns preview. Zay, how are you feeling heading into this game Sunday? More optimistic than the past, I assume, because of the Nick Chubb article. But how are you feeling?
We just talked about it a second ago. I don't really care about anything right now. The one thing that I care about is 24. That place is gonna be. I'm so intrigued because I know what I'm expecting, and I think it'll exceed the expectation. I'm just curious how bad it's really gonna be in that stadium and in that environment. And I think the only thing that can save it is a perfect football game, and you
Yeah.
don't get many of those in the NFL. But it's another opportunity. When I read that Nick Chubb article, I'm sure you read it. I was ready to run through a wall. I've been running through walls for the past couple days, and I think that's why my mouth hurts right now. Because that was every ounce of what this city needed. And then, obviously the guards cap off yesterday in
Yeah.
spectacular fashion. So maybe there's some new wind in the sail.
Well, let's hope because the Cleveland sports scene has been at an all-time low until the Guards started pulling stuff together. Last night was a ridiculous win. That was an unbelievable, one of the best baseball games I've ever seen in my life. And now you're getting your hometown hero running back coming back and playing a game first time in over a year for the Cleveland Browns. That article was unbelievable. Like you said in your video, Cleveland doesn't deserve Nick Chubb. Like he's a different world, both talent-wise and as a person. So to
Mhm.
read that and to see him coming back in the situation they're in, it's almost impossible to feel optimism for this Browns team. But because he's coming back in that fashion, there is some optimism. And I think just, on the field, truly a game changing, defensive game plan changing talent that you got to respect. And another thing that's kind of gone overlooked in this whole process this week, Jerome Ford hasn't practiced either of the last 2 days. So we wait to see if he practices Friday. If he doesn't, though, where's Nick Chubb's pitch count? Does he have one? I don't know.
That's what this question seems to be, but we talked about it a couple episodes ago, and I just coach didn't sound like he's gonna have him on a pitch count. I think
Yeah.
we'll see typical I, for some reason people just seem to think that we average all these carries with Chubb, but sporadically we see those 20 carry games and those
Mhm.
high 19 carry games. Like realistically, we've been seeing 15 touches, 12, 15 touches for Chubb the past couple years. So
Yep.
I wouldn't be shocked if he gets right back into his normal load right away because you see the chart and he goes 6 for 60 and you're not going to give him the ball again. Oh, you're asking for a PR nightmare. So I'm expecting Nick Chubb to come out here and do what he wants to do, especially since it feels like he wants to do everything in his power. I don't think Chubb's going to be like, hey, give me a limited role. Like, no, coach, if I'm going to play me. So hopefully I hope that's the direction they take.
I agree with you because the normal workload, like you said, is not a 25 carry game. Like that's not really the reality with Nick Chubb, and it hasn't been for a while now. So coming back and getting that, you do assume that it's at least moderately reasonable. Does he continue to get an increased workload as time goes on? We wait to see. We don't know if they're going to lean on a committee. I think Naeem Hines is also back this week, if I'm not mistaken. What do they do with him? That's very interesting to see as well. But on the other end of the spectrum, somebody who will not be suiting up for the Cleveland Browns this weekend is Amari Cooper. They traded him off to the Buffalo Bills, received a third round pick and a seventh round pick back, while sending Amari Cooper and a sixth to Buffalo. Now, we talked about it a bunch in the offseason, the potential trades. There's a lot that can go into this, and there's a lot to break down about this. What were your initial thoughts on the Amari Cooper trade?
It was like it was like waiting for that roller coaster. You know when you get up to the roller coaster, you're like, "Oh my god, we just waited in line all this time." And then you get down that first drop and it's like, it's not what I thought it was gonna be. It didn't hit you the same way. Like it hit me because we knew it was coming, but it didn't hit me as if you were on some spectacular thrill. Because any other time, Zay would be like, Andrew Berry, you've done it a freaking again. Like
Yeah.
you got every ounce of juice out of this lemon or out of this orange, and you got two back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons out of Amari Cooper. And we talked about this plenty of times. More than likely, Amari Cooper was going to walk at the end of the
Yes.
year. He made it clear he wants to get paid. He's searching for one more contract, and chances are we weren't going to give it to him. So the fact that you can get a third round pick in return, when he's leading the league in drops, like that is That is typical Andrew Berry finding a way to get the most out of it. So that's my initial thoughts on it. Man, Buffalo, you guys got you one. I know he's going to do
Yeah.
fantastic with Josh Allen. It'll be a seamless transition. And hopefully, you know, this contract that we got with Jared Judy starts to look even better because now you really got him on penny to the dollar, seeing as though he's definitely wide receiver number one.
Yeah, the opportunity for Judy's going to be up for sure. I mean, this is kind of what you thought was going to happen after you renegotiated Amari Cooper's contract and you signed Jerry Judy to the extension, but it's just like 6 months earlier. It's the offseason in October now instead of February, March. I think hindsight's 2020, but my mind will always go back to the Brandon Ayuk situation where you could have had somebody who I still do think is better than Amari Cooper come onto your team and you trade Amari Cooper away, whether you would lose a lot of picks, whatever it may be. The opportunity was there, and ultimately the trigger was not pulled on that trade.
That's because he didn't want to come though. So that's kind of unfair because they were gonna do it, you know. And Brandon Ayuk didn't sign off on it. So in that retrospect, I get what you're saying, but it's like that was out of our control. We couldn't control that because I think the trigger was already pulled. They just didn't want to hit the target, or the target didn't want to be hit. You know what I mean?
Was it a contract thing or was it Ayuk saying I don't want to play for the Browns?
I'm pretty sure it was Ayuk didn't want to just straight up didn't want to come to Cleveland. I'm almost positive that's what it was.
Because I thought it was a money thing. I didn't think anybody was, or the Cleveland Browns especially, were going to touch what San Francisco gave them. That was where my mind was. But regardless, if you had an opportunity to trade Amari Cooper in the offseason and build something 6 weeks earlier, you missed that opportunity. Could that opportunity have gone a different way? Sure. You pull it up.
Sports Illustrated, Yahoo, a lot of people have. They said Ayuk himself nixed the move because he did not want to come to Cleveland. Ayuk doesn't want to play for. I'm told after multiple reports, Ayuk did not want to play for the Patriots or Cleveland.
Interesting.
So, and there was a story behind that, and conspiracy, take how you want. Apparently, the theory was, well, why would he want to come here when Greg Newsome and somebody else on the defense supposedly was talking to his girl or something like that, like. So locker room issues, stuff like that, which is why Greg Newsome was probably in that trade rumor throughout that as well. Like it all correlated and made sense. So that could be a huge reason why he didn't want to come to Cleveland.
Interesting. So regardless of that, Amari Cooper stays on the team. I don't think he would have been moved if this team was better than they were. Like, I don't think he would have been traded if this team was 4-2.
Oh, 100%.
Like, I don't think this move would have happened if the Browns were in a better spot. But I hesitate to think it's them throwing in the towel on the season because at the end of the day, it is only 6 weeks and there's a lot of football left and there is still a lot of talent on this football team. If they can figure it out, they're a tough team to play. That's besides the point. This is the closest you can get to throwing in the towel without actually throwing in the towel, though, because you're basically saying, look, we know what the offseason is going to look like. We're just going to get ahead of it right now and sacrifice at least part of this season.
I mean, if we really take our Cleveland Browns shades off, if we take our emotions out of the fact and look at it just black and white, man, they are set up in a prime position to make some big moves next year. Now, I know money is going to be a huge play, but you're talking about the best guy in the business and figuring out how to come up with money when needed be. I'm not worried about that. We always find ways. But you talk about a first-round pick. You're talking about losing probably 7 or 8 one-year deals. That's going to open up opportunities for a plethora of guys. Maybe some free agents come in. Like the fact that I think the selling point is going to be different knowing how the season ends because you're going to have to sell people on Deshaun Watson if you're bringing him back, period. Yeah. That's the one major caveat that I'm not really looking forward to is that what once was, I want to come here and play with Jim Schwartz and this defense and da-da-da-da-da because they have these aspirations. Well, now you're 1-5 and you just took more than 2 steps back. You're going to have to convince people that we're either A, moving on from Deshaun Watson, or B, he's going to figure this out and we're going to do whatever we can, whether that be get a high-name receiver or whatever the case may be at the end of the year. That's going to come into play. So they are in a very, very weird situation, but I think Andrew Berry and those boys are looking at the chops and while maneuvering this because there is still all 6 AFC North games.
Yeah, all 6 AFC North games, like we talked about, it's a different season, right?
I mean, that's you sweep it. Think about it. That's how Pittsburgh got into the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
They dominated the AFC North. I think they went undefeated or they only lost one game in the AFC North. So that's your ticket in. If you can find a way to dominate, I mean, maybe that's why they haven't won at home. Maybe they're trying to dominate the AFC North. They dominated a home last year. Maybe this is the year that they try to dominate the North. I'm all for it.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is definitely a good start. I do think Pittsburgh and Baltimore are much better, at least right now, than the Browns and the Bengals. This is the worst team the Browns are going to play in the AFC North. Kind of hobbling into, like their offense has looked good, but a tough game last week against the New York Giants. I mean, they got a garbage time touchdown to put them up to 17 points against the Giants defense that was without a couple of their best players. Like this is a Bengals team that's been hit or miss offensively. Defensively, we'll get after the quarterback. I worry about that a lot this week. We can talk about that later, but this is the opportunity you asked for as a Browns fan. I know we talked about it the last week or two saying, oh, they're going to rest Nick Chubb. They're going to come in 1-5, and that's how they're going to sell tickets. It's true, but this is the first home game in almost a month since the debacle against the Giants. This is, again, as hopeful as you can get, at least at 1-5 in a bad season. But I will say the stadium release news, I know it was already planned out. This meeting was already planned out. This stadium release news could not have come at a worse time.
It was the worst opportunity to drop this news because I couldn't care less one bit. Oh, this tells me as a fan, and we talked about this a few times as well, like how Jimmy Haslam operates this business. And a lot of people want Andrew Berry fired, but I'm sorry, you're not firing the guy who's managing Jimmy Haslam's money when he's donking off 1.2 billion for a stadium renovation, when he's investing $230 million into this player and guaranteeing 18 million and letting a team only have to pay 800,000. Like this guy's eating millions and millions and millions of dollars and no one can maneuver it better than him. And you when you release this is like, oh, we got a 1-5 football team and yet you're caring about a business move. Like it's just like everything seems like it's business operated. And you can say you want to win football games all you want, and yeah, you've cut the checks, but every time you get that, every time I give you an inch, you take a mile. Like we gave you that inch, like damn, you're doing some good job, but now here you come dropping this news when nobody cares. And then you're telling the heart of Cleveland, the people that are going to be in the Muni lot downtown, that this is going to be gone. Oh, you are asking for that stadium to blow up before it even can happen.
If there's an offensive 3-and-out to start the game, I think that might be the most boos I've heard in a stadium in a long time.
I can't believe I'm so glad you went back to it because that's what I was going to say. This is the one time this team cannot do anything bad in the first quarter. You can't come out 3-0. You can't have a ball in the dirt, Deshaun. You can't have a questionable draw play on 2nd and 13 or something. Like, you have to do everything right because the second you know how bad it's gonna be, right?
Oh, it's gonna be so bad. I would say for the first play should be your best run play, the scheme you are most confident in. Give it to Nick Chubb. Literally anything but a tackle for loss, and the crowd will go nuts. Get the crowd into it early, especially offensively.
Nick Chubb could lose 20 yards, and that place will still be doing backflips. That's true. Guarantee you. Like that's the one. It's gonna be so funny because I'm wondering if it's gonna be boo, boo. Yeah. Like I wonder if it's gonna be alternating things because that's what I feel in my gut that's gonna happen.
Well, I'll ask you this then. Nick Chubb's first game back, first play for the Cleveland Browns offense, run or pass?
Oh, if you pass this ball on the first freaking game, oh my God. Matter of fact, it's probably signature Stefanski to go shotgun empty set. You'll have Nick Chubb lined up in the slot. They'll motion him into the backfield, and he'll swing out for a little flat route check down, and he'll get like that. That's what it feels like will happen. But you got to hand the ball off. And you may have to hand the ball off the first 3 times of the game. Don't even try to pass it.
Interesting. See, my thought process was everybody is expecting that. If you're Kevin Stefanski, because at the end of the day, this is a new look offense. You don't have your number one wide receiver, quote unquote. He hasn't been this year so far. You don't have him. You get Nick Chubb back. Could you change your offensive identity a little bit? Go play action, try to take the top off right away. Like this Bengals secondary is not good.
this is what irks me about the situation. And while I get that you're trying to tailor everything to Deshaun Watson, the fact of the matter is that when you're a coach, you need to put your players in position to win. And when we were under center last game, it was working. And you insist on trying to go in the shotgun. And I know people commented to me and was like, well, Deshaun Watson came out on record and said he doesn't like to play under center. Well, as a coach, I don't care right now because our
Yeah.
offense is moving with you under the center and we're moving with the play action and you're getting time to go through multiple reads than just one because we have such big guys on the line that can chip and help out. So if I'm coach, like that's where it's like there's so much blame to really be had, but we can't have that legitimate conversation. Kevin Stefanski should be like, you know what, Deshaun? I know you want to do this, but right now, what's best for the team, we're going to go back to 12 personnel, line back up under center, and let's get this thing going because when the new look offense came in with Joe Flacco, that first drive was a play. Wasn't it like a play action deep pass to David Njoku and then another one to Jerome Ford under
Yeah, the
center? Like,
throwback. Yep.
yeah. So like, let's get back to what works. And if Deshaun isn't happy with it, who cares? You're making enough money. Go get your damn paycheck.
Or go put somebody else in there. Like this is if the offense works a certain way, then so be it. I mean, just looking at what the Bengals have struggled with recently, the defense has not been great, but they last 2 weeks have really struggled on the ground, which is very interesting because I mean, you face a guy like Derrick Henry 2 weeks ago. Naturally, you are going to struggle on the ground, especially when you have a dual threat quarterback like Lamar Jackson. And then last week, Daniel Jones is efficient on the ground. Tyrone Tracy looks really good. Maybe the Browns leaned into the quarterback run game a little bit more, something Deshaun Watson also reportedly, well, not reportedly, he doesn't like it. He doesn't want to take the hits. He said that. But maybe they lean into that too. This has to be a different offensive approach than it has been in the past 6 weeks, right?
I mean, yeah, you ain't put up over 18 points and threw for over 200 yards. There's got to be some type of different approach, which is why I think we've seen the departure of Amari Cooper. You
Mhm.
mentioned that run thing, though. Like, I'm so confused and puzzled on when did Deshaun Watson flip flop on that. I
I don't
went
know.
back into the archives and I tried to find my videos on it, but I vividly remember Deshaun Watson coming out and saying, I am not going to stop being the runner that I am. Using my feet is who I am. And now all of a sudden, you don't want to run. I just want to know when did that flip flop. So,
Yeah.
but yes, in terms of needing a change, I'm leaning on Nick Chubb and David Njoku. And you know what? Honestly, I'm leaning on Jamari Thrash. Like
Mm.
Kevin Kevin Stefanski is at his best when he can utilize talent that does not have expectation. Jamari Thrash doesn't have any expectation right now. David Njoku expectation has already been met. He's the leader of this team, or one of the leaders of this team. I think he could show a little bit better energy on the field, but that
Yeah.
comes at the direct correlation of your quarterback.
100%.
So, I'll be looking for a lot of body language telling this week. That's my number one thing. Because remember, when OBJ got traded, Myles Garrett slowly drift away. You didn't hear from Jarvis Landry no more the rest of the year. Now I know there's not those type of connections like that on this team, I don't think, but we saw body languages shift drastically. I mean, Myles Garrett, I think, was supposed to do that breakdown versus the Cincinnati Bengals game when that trade happened, and
Uh-huh.
Baker Mayfield ended up doing it. And I watched it, and I'm like, I was hyped at first, and then I went back and watched it. I'm like, oh my goodness, this does not look good. So I'm watching body language this week.
That's a great point because everybody talks about the great relationships they've had with Amari Cooper. Obviously Amari Cooper has been there for a little bit longer, was more productive as a Cleveland Brown in general. Like, I don't know. This is a very, very interesting situation to look at from a teammate's perspective because even though I think David Njoku pretty confidently you can say is the offensive leader, a defensive, they have a couple different leaders, but Amari Cooper was always a guy, much like Nick Chubb, who kind of quietly led by example. And I think him being the real veteran presence in that offense it's gone. And we talked about it like literally since week one. There's no veteran presence offensively outside of Amari Cooper, and Amari Cooper wasn't playing well. So how much do you listen to somebody who's not playing well in the moment? It's tough. There's really no veteran presence. And now the smaller veteran presence you had is in Buffalo. Who is going to step up as a leader offensively? I don't like it has to be Nick Chubb, obviously, but
You know who
he's not a vocal guy.
No, you know who it has to be. And unfortunately, I just don't know how we see him because this team is so built for Joe Flacco, it makes me throw up in my mouth.
Yeah.
Like everything that you need is in that player right now. And unfortunately, the person you asked who is going to be that guy, it's five.
Yeah.
He's the one guy that can lead you in a way that you need to be led. Is he goofy as hell? Man, yes, we know Jameis. But maybe there's a sense of leadership that he has in there that's so valuable. And you talk about it in the receiving aspect. Look at that receiving room, bro. Like we went like there's no if Jerry Judy has a hissy fit on the sideline, we are chalked. Like
Yeah.
as far as like I'm just thinking about that. You always had a Jarvis, you always had an Amari Cooper. You had somebody that was a vet presence in that locker room. And while these guys may have some years under their belt, Elijah Moore has a couple. No one is in this locker room where I'm like, damn, he gonna get this together. Like I go back to that interview that Joe Flacco had. They asked him about leadership and what the quarterback is supposed to do for your team, and how they're supposed to lead. And he just says the way that you carry yourself, like you come off to the sideline, players looking at your quarterback to see how you're carrying yourself. They want to know if they still have this chance. If you're going on the sideline when you see Deshaun Watson take his helmet off with that flinging an arm, look at the rest of the sideline. And we have no one on our team, whether it be the receiving room, whether it be the running back room, whether it be the tight end room, the offensive line. There's no one on that side of the ball that you can look at on the sideline and be like, oh, we got a chance because he's leading us. And when you had Joe Flacco, you did,
Yep.
and fortunately, Deshaun Watson's not doing it. And I think Jameis Winston can galvanize troops.
Oh, he could definitely galvanize troops. It's more a matter of if the Haslams are going to let him play. But he can absolutely galvanize troops. I don't doubt that for a
Do you
second.
think we see him?
No, at least not this week. No.
No, I mean, like, how soon though? Like, do you think we actually see Jameis when it matters? Like, not when it comes to the last couple games of the season. It's like, oh, let's just throw him in. Like, do you think we actually see J-Bo?
I'll say like first 2/3 of the season. No, I think the Browns like the reality is the Haslams don't want to play him if that's the case. But I think like you talked about squeezing every ounce of juice you had out of Amari Cooper. I think you got to do the same with Deshaun Watson, whether it's right or wrong, especially the next couple of weeks. Like you can lose to go back-to-back losses to two divisional teams. I don't love to say after halfway through the season, your season is chalked, but that's as close as like it might be over. Like at that point, you're putting Deshaun Watson out there to really see if you can at least figure something out moving forward. A lot of times, and I've noticed this over the past 5-6 years. Every single year, there's always a team, whether they make the playoffs or not, who gets hot the second half of the NFL season. And they roll into the next season and rip through the league, especially to start the year. Last year, the big one was the Detroit Lions, who ended the season 2 years ago, I think like 6-1 or 7-1, and they just ripped through everybody because you knew they were getting better. They had a good draft class. They had the picks to do it with. So if that's the case, you're going to leave Deshaun Watson in and just see, is there anything? I think the only way it happens, Jameis comes in, is if they are winning games despite Deshaun Watson's performance, which could be a reality. It could happen.
You know what I just don't understand and what I don't see though is like, I've played the other side of this coin too. If I'm Jimmy Haslam and I sit here and I look at this situation and I've seen what it's done to this city and what it's done to this team and the fan base, like this is as bad as it's ever been. Like this team, this organization and this fan base has gone through so much, but we've never been more divided. Like even let's just say we do turn the ship around. Let's just say Deshaun Watson does do what you need to do and go 8-3, and they go 9-8, and they sneak into the playoffs. Is that still worth it at the end of the day? We talked about it on the last. Is it still worth it? I'm at a point where there was a point where it was worth it, but now I don't know if it's worth it because, oh, great, you won with a blank. You know what I mean? Like there's just gonna be that in the Walking Dead scene, tainted meat.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely going to be tainted as long as Deshaun Watson is on the roster. Um,
That's why I don't. I'm sorry. That's why I just didn't. The Jamos thing. I just don't. You say we don't. If we lose these next two games, bro, how don't we throw him in?
I think Honestly, I think if they don't throw Jameis in, it's almost like, all right, Deshaun, prove something or we're cutting you. I think that like that's where their mind would be at.
And I think that's where but see, then they would be letting Deshaun win. Like Deshaun wins no
Yeah.
matter what, but like if anything, you keep him out there in his misery until he's gone. You know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. This is such a dumb situation to be in, and the only thing that can solve this is 24. He's the
Yeah.
only thing that kept this together this week.
Absolutely. And I think the offensive side of the ball for the Browns, especially if they are going to lean more on Nick Chubb, lean more on the run game, it's a different entity walking into this game against a defense that struggled. That's the reality. Like they have not looked great the past few weeks. They've given up a lot of points to everybody except for the Giants last week. Like they're not looking great. On the other side of the ball, though, I am worried. I think you finally saw what happened to a Browns secondary last week when you played two elite receivers, and there were multiple different matchups where you were outplayed by the talent across from you. And that was the reality of it. We talked about it on Tuesday. It's not like the Browns corners are inherently bad because even I fall into the trap too. Like you give up big plays, you give up big touchdowns, and you're like, these guys stink. They don't stink. Sometimes you get beat. But last week, you just saw two receivers that were better than your DBs, and they beat you on multiple big plays. This week, some will argue these two receivers are better than the other two they played last week. How are they going to stop Jamar Chase and T. Higgins this week?
It's so weird talking about the Bengals because this is like you actually have to take this one with a grain of salt with the Browns. Like I know Browns fans always try to feed people that, but this is actually true because for some reason Denzel Ward gets the best of Jamar Chase.
Mm-hmm.
The Browns get the most out of Joe Burrow. Like we cause problems for this team for whatever reason. Whether we're 1-5, we were 2-5 the one year that we blew them out on Halloween. Like this is a game that the Browns are built for. So,
Yeah.
you say you're worried for it. I look back at those plays, the Greg Newsome one where he got beat underneath twice to Devontae Smith. One of them went for the touchdown. That's part of that scheme.
Yeah.
Part of that, you have to recognize that they ran that same exact play on you earlier in the game. You should be aware that it may be coming again since it worked at such an effective clip. So you got to take that into consideration. But the one at the end of the game, the deep ball, Greg Newsome was playing about as good a coverage as you could
Oh,
have
yeah.
played on AJ Brown. And even then, you don't even want Greg Newsome on AJ Brown in that situation. You want Martin Emerson. The touchdown catch where Martin Emerson got absolutely just destroyed. Again, great coverage, great ball. Like those are plays where you're like, okay, I can live with that. It's the ones where it's the miscommunication. It's the
Mm-hmm.
ones where you're getting beat before you can even have an opportunity to make a play on the ball. They haven't quite gotten there to that point. And the thing that I like to always go back to is we haven't done our defense any service. The
Sure.
offense had an opportunity to let the defense be where they're at their best is with the lead, and you didn't put points up on the board. Instead, you had to make them go out there and play behind and go against one of the best offenses in the league with that talent, at least. So I'm not worried about the defense yet, man. Once they give up in the first quarter, that's when I'll worry.
All right, I'm with you. You convinced me that there's a little bit more hope there. I also do think this week, this is the best matchup the Browns have had up front. This is a Bengals offensive line that has been bad. They have struggled. They haven't been able to keep Joe Burrow upright for a long time, really as long as he's been playing in Cincinnati. But they have struggled. The Giants gave him trouble last week. The Ravens gave him trouble a couple weeks ago. The Browns should be able to get after Joe Burrow too, and that will wreck the offense. I know the Bengals are one of the best teams when they are behind the chains in those third and mediums, third and longs in the NFL, but put them in those situations more often than not, you're going to walk out of there happy as a Browns fan. Now, I think the most interesting aspect of this game is kind of like what you talked about, the complementary football, doing your defense favors, because I would venture to guess this week the Browns are going to run the football more. I don't think I'm crazy for thinking that or crazy for saying that. But that is going to play into the complementary football aspect a ton. Like you haven't been able to run the ball effectively. The volume in the run game hasn't even been there. It was last week. That's really it. And you, like you said, you haven't done your defense any favors. This week, though, you get Nick Chubb back. You're going up against the run defense that hasn't been great. This should be a week where you can, even if it's a drive that results in a field goal. I don't even want to, it's crazy I'm even thinking that and saying that. But even in a drive that results in a field goal where you take 6 minutes off the clock, let your defense sit down, it's going to do wonders for your team.
This game feels like the game when Deshaun Watson first came back versus the Texans, and he did absolutely nothing that game, and we won strictly at the hands of the defense and special
Yeah.
teams.
Mhm.
This has that kind of moxie written all on it because the Browns want to see this fall, like the fans, that is. And I just don't think this team is going to allow, I don't think the defense is going to allow it. I think, Nick Chubb is going to give that offense a spark, but I think if anything, it's going to give that defense just as much of a spark because they know, like you said, we should be running the ball more than 26 times. I mean, you got still Strong who ran it 8 for 40 or whatever it was. Deontay Foreman still carried it 13 plus times for 40 yards, which is not great, but he still carried it. So we should be running the ball more. And I think the defense can thrive off of a Nick Chubb touchdown or off of a Nick Chubb run. And seeing that, knowing that, dang, Nick Chubb been running for 7 minutes. Oh, let's go get this dude. But like, this
Yeah.
is one of those, we got your back. We will not lose this game for you.
I like that. And I honestly, I don't know about you. I don't think they're going to lose this game this week. I think
I
the
don't think
Browns
they
will
do
win
either.
this game. It's a game where you, again, are not favored. You are walking into a good environment at home, first home game in a month. However, the fans feel about the state of the team is almost a wash because Nick Chubb is coming back and he's coming back in the fashion that he is with the article, with everything he means to the city. Like it's an emotional game. I hate to pick anything based off emotion, but I do think the Browns will dominate up front defensively. I think that's going to cause a lot of issues for this Bengals offense. It's so weird. Like I said, I worry about the DB sometimes, but you're right. Every time Denzel Ward gets the best of Jamar Chase. Last year, Martin Emerson, I think, played that or the Niners game, his best game of the year against T. Higgins. Like, they just always find a way to beat the Bengals. Joe Burrow
Mm-hmm.
struggles to beat the Browns. And I think that is a real thing. Like, everybody has their kryptonite in the NFL. Some people can't beat certain people, certain teams, certain schemes. I do think the Browns win this game. Score prediction, I'm going to go 20-17. I think it's a close game. But I do think the Browns, look, I'm going to say there's no way they go the whole season without scoring 20 points. Eventually, they're going to get there, I think. So
Could you imagine?
if I don't even know, I think everybody gets fired if that happens. But I'm going to go 20-17 Cleveland.
It's funny on my other show that I went 1918 Browns. Just for the simple fact that we don't crack the 20 mark barrier. I just I want to be Mr. Optimism. I'm the one guy that you can always look to try to do it, man. But I'm also a guy that likes to be real when I can. And right now, they got to show me something, man. This is
Yeah.
bad. I just don't know where the mindset went, what's going on. But, I roll with, like I told you before, I roll with Baker all the way until the end. And I try to do it with 4. But I'm at that end road, man. If I don't see anything soon, I'm gonna be forced, and unfortunately, it's a terrible spot to be in because we're wasting so much talent. And this offseason, we thought this offseason was unfun, talking about Nick Chubb contract this, and you got Miles Garrett trade rumors every single other day and week. This offseason is gonna be brutal. It's gonna be a
Yeah.
nightmare. So give me the Browns this week. We go to 2-5, and we're battling for the last spot with the Bengals. And we send their ass off to Kentucky.
Yeah. I'm
So
with it.
give me
One
what did
weekend.
I said 1918. That was the
Yeah.
other score. I'm gonna go realistic here. Let's go. You said 2017. What am I crazy to think that this could be one of those? It's been a long time since we got one of those high scoring Browns Bengals games. Where it's been what Baker Mayfield's 4 or 5 touchdown game.
Yeah.
That was
I mean, the Bengals defense does not look good.
Yeah, that was a few years ago. I mean, history likes to repeat itself. You're a man, like you said, you've
Yeah.
been calling everything week in and week out. If history repeats itself, give
Yeah.
me a shootout this week.
Oh, okay. That's crazy. I can't.
Give
Yeah.
me, give me, give me a shootout this week at the hands of Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb goes 2 touchdowns. I
Love
think
that.
the defense finds a way to go 3 weeks in a row to put some type of points up on the board, whether it be defense or special teams. And we'll go Dustin Hopkins gets himself a field goal. So give me 24-21 Browns.
I love it. Sweet. So we're both on the Browns. You're on more of a shootout, a higher scoring game, even with the departure of Amari Cooper, but you bring Nick Chubb in. I think that's a net positive. I'm 20-17. Again, I think it's a close game. The matchup I want everybody to watch here, well, I'll give you two. I think Martin Emerson, T. Higgins is going to be the deciding factor of this game, to be honest with you. I think you look at how Emerson's played the past couple, I'd say a past month or so. And I mean, it hasn't been great, but this is a matchup that he's had success with in the past. So I think that's kind of where the key is. But the best matchup, and I know I'm going to sound crazy for thinking this, it's not, they didn't even go against each other. Ryan Rakow, the punter for the Cincinnati Bengals, and Corey Borquez, the punter for the Cleveland Browns. These are the two best punters in the NFL right now. Like, it is unbelievable watching what these guys do. So I'm calling it right now. Somebody's going to get a safety in this game. I don't know how it's going to happen. One of these two defenses is going to get a safety, and it's going to come because their punters put them in a good spot. I think a safety is coming in this game, and I'm going to bet it, to be honest with you. I think one of these two teams is going to get a safety this game.
When I made my original score prediction, it includes a safety. So it would have to go for, I think it would have to go for the Bengals, which would make perfect sense because Deshaun Watson is that. I've never felt the city more locked and loaded to do something negative than I have. I don't think ever in my sports. Like, I mean, I knew the 0-16 parade was coming. That was really bad. But this, it's almost like they're like in the when the movie clip goes over and you see people loading up the guns and it pans over to another scene and this one's getting his pitchfork ready and it's like. I just got a feeling that all of these Browns fans are coming in together. No matter if you're a Baker bro, you seen the one meme where it was like Baker bro, Deshaun haters, and everyone pointing at Nick Chubb. I feel like everyone's banding together right now, and they are ready to be like, boo, all freaking game. So, are we on Fox this week?
I don't know. I can check.
Usually, Bengals is a CBS game.
Yeah, it probably is.
Because it is. It's CBS. Okay, thank God. Because I was going to say Fox is going to have a field day on us. They've been destroying us every chance they get.
They're 5.5-point favorites, too. That's a lot. I'm not going to lie.
It opened up at 6.
So I'll tell you what. I'm definitely going to be on the 5.5 for the Browns. That's for sure.
Everything feels like Nick Chubb. Because everyone doesn't believe it. Everyone says Nick Chubb's not going to save your season. Nick Chubb's not going to carry you. Nick Chubb's not going to do this. I don't know why it feels like Adrian Peterson is loading into Amari Cooper or into Nick Chubb, and he's going to do we're going to see 18 carries for $120 and 2 touchdowns. Like, I don't know if it's just me homering it, but I feel something in my body crazy with Nick Chubb. Do you feel that?
Well, and I think it's also matchup based because, like I said, this Bengals defense has not been great against the run. They haven't. And, whether they change how they play defensively to make Deshaun Watson beat them, which would probably be a good idea, is above me. And we wait to see if they do that. But I'm with you. I think this is a good matchup. I think running backs have been efficient. I like it.
Before we go, just some numbers for you. Nick Chubb thrives against these guys. Let's go back all the way to 2018. 28 attempts, 84 rushing yards. 19 attempts, 112. 15 for 106. 22 for 124, 14 for 137, 23 for 101, 18 for 106. Those are the 100-plus games that he's had. He thrives against the Bengals. It feels like it's in the making for him to come back like Batman.
I am with you. And I think if he has 100 yards on the ground, as long as, again, the Browns don't do anything to sabotage themselves offensively, they will win this football game. If they can control the ground like that, they're going to win this game for sure.
Because that's what this team has always been built on, defense and running the ball.
Yep. And you know what? The defense is there. Can they run the ball with their number one running back coming back after a year absence? I would hope so.
That video had me about to tear up. I know Chubb was about to tear because I was watching him. I think it sounded like the defensive players to me. I was trying to listen to who it was, but the players that was hyping up, signal the bat, signal it. Bro, this defense is about to – I think we might see the best defense we've seen all year this week coming up.
Complimentary football, it's a real thing. But we wait to see Browns-Bengals, 1 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, CBS. We both have the Browns. Close game, but we both do have Cleveland out on top. Zay, any final words before we sign off?
Are you going to be down there this week?
I will not, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, you're in Boston.
Yes, back home for the weekend. But I will be there next weekend for sure. It's going to be a good game against the Ravens. But we can't look forward to that. We got to beat the Bengals first.
Yeah, you going to Drake May? See Drake May?
No, I wish. He's in London this weekend, but I'll
Oh
tell you
yeah,
what, it
that's
will absolutely be on my TV. I was captivated by his performance. Even though they lost last week, it was very good to see. I think he looked really good against a really good defense too. Now he gets the worst pass defense in the NFL, so we'll see how that goes.
So you just posted up down there. Are you doing anything for Sunday for it? Or are you just gonna kick up at the house and it's kind of like
Yeah,
a little red
just
zone
hanging out.
Sunday?
Red Zone Sunday. I haven't had one of
Love
those in a
it.
minute, so I'm excited.
You do, man. You do. All right.
Yes.
Well, you know me. Have a good time down there in Boston. Best wishes to the family, and as always, here we go, Brownies. Here we go.
All right, guys. We appreciate you hopping on. We will see you next time. Go Browns.